Hello, welcome to M Scholar. I am Maxwell Oduapeme. Today I want to discuss with you how to conduct an experimental research in an educational setting. I said educational setting because there are different ways of carrying out experimental research. And when you are carrying out experimental research on objects that are not having a mind of their own, certain conditions are taken into consideration. When you are dealing with human beings, the way you conduct an experimental research with human beings is not the same way you go about it when you are dealing with plants, for instance. This is because the human beings have a mind of their own. They can make a choice and act in a certain way that makes them completely unpredictable. So this is why you need to take note of some things. One of the things that you take note of is that it is not possible for you to have a true experimental sample with respect to carrying out research in education involving human beings. This is because there are several factors that affect the human being that we do not have control over. So what we do in an experimental setting, as far as an educational setting is concerned, we use what we call intact classes. What I mean is, when you come to a school and you want to carry out your experimental study, it is difficult for you to be able to get to sample the class, the two groups, or at least their groups, in a fair manner. This is because, like I mentioned, factors such as the pre-knowledge you may have about the subject you want to present, some other psychological factors that might be affecting them, maybe their academic prowess in the first place, you cannot ascertain them. So therefore, splitting a school into multiple groups and having fair and equal representation in those groups is pretty much difficult. Therefore, what we do in education is that when you get to a school, you just use the sample that you meet in that school in the form that you meet it, based on the fact that it has already been naturally selected, in the current state that you meet it. So, in carrying out an experimental study, you will need to use at least two different schools. This will help you to, implement your study in a way that the natural state of those groups is just what you are going to adopt, based on the fact that you do not have control over what should be done or what not to be done. So moving on, you will need to have two groups, as I mentioned. One group you will christen it the experimental group, and the other one you call it the control group. The control group, you administer your instruments without any specialized or special treatment. Whereas for the control group, you administer your instruments and then you go ahead and give them a special treatment. That treatment might be a new teaching method or a new condition that you subject them to. In the case of my master's degree that I did back in 2012, what I did was that I experimented the effectiveness of a number. Are you enjoying yourself so far? If you are, please smash the subscribe button. So what I did was that I tried to check the effectiveness of a particular teaching approach in comparison with another teaching approach, which is the lecture method. Lecture method is widely considered more or less the conventional method that is used over here. So you have two groups: the control group, you have the experimental group. Then, like I said, the experimental group will receive special treatment, whereas the control group will not get any special treatment. But before you go ahead to administer your instruments, you first of all do what we call pre-test. You are going to have your maybe achievement test or Sakamoto test or whatsoever kind of thing that you have. You administer that test on the two groups, collect your scores, and keep them in your, keep them in your database. Then you allow a certain period for the treatment to come in. Okay, that means that in my case, I selected about 6 topics that are supposed to be treated over a period of 6 weeks. And the teachers that normally would teach these children were the ones that taught these students the topics. But group A, being the experimental group, the teacher was trained specially with a way to administer or to use that particular teaching approach in the classroom. So the teacher went ahead, having been trained on the use of that teaching approach. He used that particular teaching approach to teach the 6 topics over a period of 6 weeks. After these 6 weeks, immediately the researcher went in there to administer the instrument that he administered at the beginning of the experiment. But note that in order to control against what we call test sensitization, we juxtapose the items of the tests such that they do not immediately appear to be the same or the exact same questions that we wrote before. And these two groups took the tests, and then the researcher went in again and collected the scores and took it away with him. Then he went ahead and performed a statistical analysis to see that was able to reveal whether which of the two teaching approaches was more effective. And in this particular case, the student, which is me, I used ANCOVA statistical technique was used to analyze this data, and this was because we have 2 sets of scores: the pretest scores, which is the covariates, and the final scores, which was the main scores. This was just opposed together in the statistical analysis method called ANCOVA, which is analysis of covariance, in order to arrive at what results that we could get. At the end of the day, it was discovered that indeed the new method that was being introduced by the research students was actually more effective in bringing out the best in the students upon which it was tested. So therefore, the researcher went ahead to recommend such a teaching methodology. Now, this analogy that I gave to you is just a simple guidance on how to carry out an experimental study in an educational setting. I want to thank you very much for giving me your listening ears. And please, that particular study that I referred to, at least 2 papers were published from it. The link to those 2 papers will be left in the description of this video. And if you still have any issues with your research and you have any questions you want to ask, please let me know in the comments section. Thanks for watching. Until I come your way again in the next video, please support me by subscribing to this channel, share with your friends and family, and let me know what you think.